family claims and state that Meghan had a hysterectomy. How can a woman with a hysterectomy be pregnant? And most of all, why did the royal family, go along with this? And what's going to happen now that this has come out? This is a punishable crime. This is fraud in the highest level.
The moment this story cracked open, it didn't just whisper scandal, it screamed it. Because this isn't just another royal disagreement, this is a full-blown family explosion, with reputations hanging by a thread and emotions spilling into the public like a secret that was never meant to escape. Meghan Markle, the woman whose image was built like a fortress of strength and reinvention, suddenly finds herself at the center of a storm she cannot easily control. And standing right beside her, Prince Harry, the man who walked away from everything for love, now visibly shaken, emotionally exposed, and possibly questioning more than he ever imagined. Because here's the real tension pulsing beneath the surface. When the attack doesn't come from tabloids or strangers, but from inside your own bloodline, it hits differently. And that's exactly what happened when Samantha Markle stepped forward, not quietly, not subtly, but with accusations sharp enough to slice through years of carefully curated storytelling. Suddenly, the narrative that millions believed began to tremble. Not collapse, not yet, but crack. For years, Meghan's story felt almost cinematic. The outsider, the survivor, the woman who fought her way into one of the most powerful institutions in the world. It was clean, inspiring, almost too perfect. But now people are asking uncomfortable questions. What if that story wasn't the full story? What if parts of it were edited, trimmed, or completely erased? And Harry, fiercely loyal, emotionally invested Harry, was thrown right into the center of this chaos. Because defending your wife against media noise is one thing, but defending her against her own family, that's different. That's personal. That's where doubt doesn't shout, it whispers. And those whispers are dangerous. What exactly did Samantha reveal that pushed things this far? Why did her words feel less like random attacks and more like fragments of a hidden narrative waiting to be exposed? The implication wasn't small. It was explosive. According to her, the Meghan the world knows isn't the complete Meghan. Not entirely real, not entirely false either, but crafted, designed, refined for public consumption. And suddenly, everything shifts. Because if there's even a possibility that parts of Meghan's past were deliberately kept out of the spotlight, then what else has been shaped behind the scenes? Was the rise to royalty really as organic as it seemed? Or was it a calculated transformation, where certain connections were cut to protect a more powerful, more marketable story? Think about it. Fame doesn't just reward authenticity, it rewards narrative. Clean, emotional, inspiring narratives. And Meghan's rise had all the elements. But Samantha's claim suggests something far more strategic, something almost surgical. A story built not just on truth, but on selective truth. And that's where it gets uncomfortable. Because if relationships were distanced, if parts of the past were intentionally left behind, then was it survival? Or was it strategy? Was it about protecting peace or controlling perception? The questions don't stop there. They multiply. Because every detail, every decision now feels like a clue. The distance from family, the silence during controversies, the carefully timed appearances. It all begins to look less random and more deliberate. And Harry, he's caught in the emotional crossfire because love demands loyalty, but truth demands clarity. And when those two collide, something always breaks. His reaction wasn't just protective, it was intense, emotional, almost too emotional. And that's what raised eyebrows. Because when someone reacts that strongly, people start wondering, is it pure defense? Or is there something deeper being triggered? Is he fighting for Meghan or fighting against a possibility he doesn't want to face? That's the tension no one can ignore. Because for Harry, this isn't just public drama, this is his life, his marriage, his choices. And if there's even a fraction of truth in what's being said, then the foundation he built everything on starts to feel unstable. And yet, he stands firm, or at least, he appears to. But appearances, as we're now learning, can be carefully constructed. As Samantha's words continue to echo, they don't just challenge Meghan's past, they challenge the entire image the couple has presented to the world. The strong bond, the united front, the narrative of escaping pressure to build something authentic. What if that authenticity itself is now being questioned? And the silence from their side, it doesn't calm the storm, it feeds it. Because in a world driven by speculation, silence doesn't close doors, it opens more. People start connecting dots, filling gaps, creating their own versions of the truth. And the longer it continues, the harder it becomes to separate reality from narrative. Because this is no longer just about Meghan and Samantha. It's bigger now. It involves Harry. It involves the royal legacy. It involves public trust. And every new detail, every claim, frame every reaction adds another layer to a story that refuses to stay simple. What was once a private family tension has transformed into a public unraveling. And right at the center of it all stands a couple whose love story once looked unbreakable, now facing questions that don't have easy answers. How far will Harry go to protect Meghan? How much is he willing to ignore or confront? And what happens if the story he believed in begins to feel incomplete? Because the real mystery isn't just what Samantha revealed. It's what those revelations are starting to uncover. And this is only the beginning. And just when it feels like the storm couldn't possibly get louder, it does. Because the story doesn't slow down, it deepens. The whispers turn into patterns, the patterns start to look like intent, and suddenly the entire narrative surrounding Meghan Markle begins to feel less like a personal journey and more like a carefully controlled storyline that refuses to stay contained. What once looked like a fight for privacy now raises a different kind of question altogether. What if privacy wasn't just protection, but power? Because here's where the tension sharpens. Meghan has consistently spoken about the need to shield her life, her family, her peace from the relentless intrusion of the public eye. And on the surface, that makes sense. Anyone in her position would crave distance from the noise, but the contradiction is impossible to ignore. While calling for privacy, deeply personal details have still found their way into the spotlight through interviews, carefully chosen appearances, and strategic moments that keep the narrative alive without ever fully revealing it. And that duality, that's where suspicion begins to grow. Is it protection or is it control? Because controlling what is shown can be just as powerful as hiding what isn't. And if Samantha's claims have done anything, they've forced people to re-examine every piece of Meghan's public identity with a sharper, more skeptical lens. The story of struggle, resilience, reinvention, it's still there, but now it's surrounded by questions that refuse to fade. Questions about what was left out. Questions about what was reshaped. Questions about whether the version the world embraced was ever the full picture to begin with. And then there's the royal exit, the moment that was framed as a bold escape, a clean break from pressure and expectation. When Prince Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties, it looked like liberation, a fresh start, a reclaiming of identity. But now, under the shadow of these revelations, even that decision feels different. Not necessarily false, but possibly layered with motives that weren't fully understood at the time. Was it truly about freedom, or was it about rewriting the narrative entirely? Because stepping away didn't just create distance from the monarchy, it created space. Space to rebuild an identity, space to reshape perception, space to present a version of themselves that could exist outside the rigid expectations of royal life. And if Samantha's accusations hold even a fraction of weight, then that space might not have been accidental, it might have been essential. Essential for control, essential for reinvention. And Harry, again, finds himself at the center of it all. Because while Meghan's story is being questioned, his loyalty is being tested in real time. Not quietly, not privately, but in front of the entire world. Every reaction, every expression, every moment of silence is being dissected for meaning. And the pressure? It's relentless. Because love doesn't erase doubt. It hides it, it delays it. But when doubt finally surfaces, it doesn't arrive gently, it crashes. And that crash is starting to feel closer. Then the narrative takes an even sharper turn, one that moves from emotional tension into something far more unsettling. Rumors, allegations, the kind that shift from gossip into territory that feels almost impossible to ignore once they're spoken aloud. Claims about secrecy, about hidden details, about moments in Meghan's life that were presented one way but possibly unfolded another. The pregnancy rumors. What started as light speculation has now turned into something heavier, darker, more persistent. People analyzing images, videos, timelines, searching for inconsistencies, trying to piece together a story that refuses to stay straightforward. And at the center of it all, a question that refuses to disappear: was everything exactly as it seemed? Because when public moments don't align perfectly with expectation, curiosity turns into suspicion. And suspicion, it spreads fast. There are claims, unverified, controversial, but undeniably loud, that suggest the possibility of a more controlled, more private process than what was shown. Words like secrecy, strategy, even surrogacy begin to surface. And while nothing is confirmed, the mere presence of these theories is enough to shake confidence in the narrative that was once accepted without hesitation. And here's the uncomfortable truth: once doubt enters the picture, it doesn't leave easily. It lingers, it grows, it reshapes how every past moment is remembered, because suddenly it's not just about one claim, it's about the pattern those claims create. Breaking royal tradition added fuel to the fire. The absence of expected public moments, the delayed announcements, the decisions that deviated from long-standing norms. Each one on its own could be explained. But together they begin to look like something more intentional, something designed. Was it simply a desire for privacy? Or was it part of a larger effort to maintain control over a narrative that needed to remain untouched? And as these questions spiral, the public finds itself stuck between two realities. One where Meghan is exactly who she says she is, a woman protecting her life in an overwhelming world. And another where every move, every choice, every silence is part of a calculated effort to preserve a version of the truth that serves a specific purpose. And Harry, he's standing between those realities. Because defending someone you love is instinct, but defending a story that might be incomplete, that's complicated. The emotional weight of this situation is no longer subtle. It's heavy, visible, almost unavoidable, because every new rumor, every resurfaced detail, every unanswered question adds pressure, not just on Meghan, but on Harry's belief in everything they've built together. And then comes the final, lingering question, the one that refuses to settle. Can trust survive this level of scrutiny? Because trust isn't just about loyalty, it's about certainty. And certainty is exactly what's being challenged right now. The public doesn't know what to believe anymore. The story feels fractured, the image feels unstable, and the silence from the couple, it only deepens the divide between perception and reality. Their brand, their identity, their message, their carefully constructed presence is now standing on uncertain ground. Not destroyed, but no longer untouchable. And that's what makes this moment so critical, because what happens next will define everything. Will they address the accusations directly and risk opening doors that can't be closed again? Or will they remain silent, allowing speculation to grow until it shapes the narrative on its own? Will Harry continue to stand firm without question, or will the pressure force him to look deeper, to ask things he never thought he'd need to ask? And Meghan, can she hold on to the image she built, or is that image slowly slipping beyond her control? Because the truth, whatever it is, has a way of surfacing. Not all at once, not cleanly, but piece by piece, detail by detail, until the story can no longer stay hidden behind carefully chosen words and controlled appearances. And right now, it feels like those pieces are starting to move. The story isn't finished. It's not resolved. It's not even close. It's unfolding. And the most unsettling part, we might only be seeing the beginning.